All right, gang. Let's do a very quick, way too early 2021 NFL mock draft. I'm going by the draft order that Vegas has set, which makes my job a lot easier because I don't like having to make these predictions. But I agree with the number one overall pick. I think it'll be the Jaguars. I think they're tanking. They did a lot of things, a lot of offseason moves, got rid of a lot of their talent, which makes me think they're tanking anyway for Trevor. So first overall pick, let's go Trevor Lawrence, quarterback Clemson. Um, Number two, Redskins, which I agree with. I think they will pick second overall because I think there's a lot of dysfunction on that team. I think they're going to take Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State, and he's going to be neck and neck with Trevor Lawrence all season. They're very similar, put up very similar numbers. They can both rush for about 500 yards, 6 touchdowns, and I think that's the way the NFL is being geared towards mobile quarterbacks. Everyone wants the next Lamar Jackson. If they can do half of what Lamar does, just to be able to disrupt defenses, they want someone who can rush for 500 yards. That's Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. Dwayne Haskins, I don't think is going to pan out. I think he's a solid backup, probably for the rest of his career. Let's see what he does this year. It's not looking so good. And he is not a mobile quarterback. So Justin Fields, I think, would be a big upgrade over Haskins. Third overall, Bengals. They will take the best tackle in the draft to protect their franchise quarterback. That's Penei Sewell, left tackle from Oregon. Oregon had the best offensive line in college last year. The majority of that line is gone now. They're in the NFL, and they're going to do great things. Sewell, in my opinion, could be a Heisman candidate. I think he'll get votes. Certainly not going to win because that Heisman's go to the quarterbacks and offensive players. The Bengals will be very well served with Penei Sewell. 4 overall, Vegas has the Panthers picking 4th overall. Personally, I think they're going to pick closer to 10 because you have Christian McCaffrey. How can you really lose that many games? But if they're picking 4th, I'm going to give them Gregory Rousseau from Miami, defensive end. He is tall. He is long. Once he gets a hand on you, which he will, you're not going anywhere. He's a game-changing defensive end. And I think that there are other players on Miami's defense that are going to go a lot higher in the draft that they should because he's going to create opportunities for them. We'll discuss that a little later. But 5th overall, the Giants, I have them taking Ja'Marr Chase. Now that I think the offensive line in New York has the talent they need, they'll use this year to kind of gel and figure some things out. But now, by the 2021 draft, you can use your first-round pick on a dynamic weapon. That's Ja'Marr Chase. Not going to discuss it any further. There's no need to. 6 overall, Lions. I haven't been taking Xavier Thomas, defensive end from Clemson. I'm not too impressed with the defensive ends that I'm seeing so far for next year. I'm sure that'll change. Someone will jump out. People will break out. But Xavier Thomas, I think, is fantastic. He is so fast. 6'2", like 265 pounds. A little bit of Aaron Donald in him when I see him play. He is dynamic. He's a game changer. You pick him in the top 10, definitely. So 6 overall, Xavier Thomas to the Lions. 7, Dolphins. I wanted very much to give Tua one of his weapons from Alabama, but I think the next best wide receiver after Ja'Marr Chase is going to be George Pickens from Georgia. He's 6'3", about $190, which means he's not only has the height and the size, but he's got the speed, separation. He's just smooth as hell. He's going to have a new quarterback who maybe not as consistent as Jake Fromm. He's going to have Jamie Newman, which might work in his favor because if he can ball out with a quarterback that has question marks that may not be great. It just makes Pickens look greater, in my opinion. Let's see, 8 overall, Jets. Now it's time for them to address wide receiver. And as good as this past year's 2020 wide receiver class was, I think we're going to see, I think I have 5 wide receivers going in the first round in 2021, and with still plenty of talent left. But the Jets, I think, have to add a weapon at wide receiver. They did some things on their offensive line with Mekhi Becton this year. They're going to have to do some more, but you have to give them a weapon if you want Sam Darnold to have any kind of a chance. I mean, he's your franchise quarterback, so give them Justin Ross, wide receiver from Clemson, 6'4", over 200 pounds, big dude, big target, great hands. He's going to, I think, really impress people this year because Clemson is probably going to win the championship. So a big part of that is going to be him. So he is going very high in this draft. 9, Cardinals. I wanted to give them a linebacker like Dylan Moses or Micah Parsons, but they just took they just took Isaiah Simmons. So let's give them a run stopper. Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle from Florida State. It's always good to stop the run when you're in the same division as the Niners, who are one of the best running teams in football. And not too many run stoppers stand out to me at this point. Marvin Wilson stood out to me last year. I had him potential first round last year, so I'll definitely put him as the best run stopper this year. 10, Dolphins. And they were right to load up on draft picks. They're rebuilding this team. They're very close. Now let's give them a linebacker. Let's give them Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. Potential Heisman winner. Again, it's probably going to go to offensive player. Parsons is one of the most highly recruited players out of high school. I think he stood out last year. In this class, I don't know of any other standouts at linebacker other than Dylan Moses, which we'll see later in this first round. I don't think I have any other linebackers going in the first round. 11, Broncos, which I don't think they're going to pick at 11, but that's what Vegas says. Give them Alex Leatherwood, left tackle out of Alabama. I had him in the first round if he came out this past year, so definitely you have to protect Drew Lock and those offensive weapons, give them time. Protect the blind side. It's Alex Leatherwood. 12, Raiders. Raiders have a history of reaching in the draft, especially lately. I think they're going to have to draft a quarterback. The next two guys up, I think, are Jamie Newman and Kellen Mond. I think they're going to go Jamie Newman. You have to see how it plays out this year. He's on a better team, obviously, better than Wake Forest. He's going to have every opportunity to shine. He is mobile. He's good for about 500 yards a year. The X factor with the number 3 quarterback off the board is Trey Lance from North Dakota. The Panthers might snag him. The question mark is it's a small school, even though Carson Wentz came out of North Dakota. Their level of competition is not great. They open up the season against Oregon. That's probably the only tough game they have this year. So if he can ball out in that game and the rest of the season, if he can put up the same numbers he did last year, this Trey Lance, 1,000 yards rushing, I don't know how many rushing touchdowns he had. Probably had a dozen rushing touchdowns. 0 interceptions. He looked fantastic. Again, the question mark is the level of competition. But for the sake of this mock, I'm going to give the Raiders Jamie Newman because he's going to have one of the best wide receivers in college in George Pickens. He's kind of leaving. He had a very good wide receiver at Wake Forest. That was his name. He's kind of leaving out to dry because he's gone now. Sutton or something, Sage something from Wake Forest. He might go later in the draft, but back to this draft. Let's see, where are we? Raiders, Jamie Newman, because the Raiders probably going to have to move on at quarterback. 13, I thought they were going to take Jalen Hurts this year. They probably didn't expect Jalen Hurts to be picked so early by the Eagles, but on we go. 13 overall, Falcons. Todd Gurley is not going to cut it. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Now they're going to have to put a dynamic running back out there. That's Najee Harris, Alabama. There are other good running backs coming out, but Najee Harris, just based on last year, is dynamic. He's a playmaker. 14, Chargers. Now let's go Dylan Moses, linebacker, Alabama. He's fantastic. He's probably maybe the second best linebacker last year. Surprised he didn't come out last year. Well, he had injuries, so he probably figured he'd go higher if he has another season to impress. He's going to be a standout. Might be the best linebacker in this draft. Don't think the Chargers are going to pass on him. They need offensive line help, but I think it's going to be a pretty good class of offensive linemen. Not such a great class at linebacker so far. So jump on Dylan Moses. 15, Bears, which I think they're going to pick higher than this because they're struggling. I think this is where they realize they need their future quarterback. It's not Nick Foles. It certainly isn't Trubisky. So at 15, since Jamie Newman is gone, I think it's going to be Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond he's going to be under a microscope this year. Very high expectations. He's a big mobile quarterback. Like I said, now he would be the fourth one off the board. All of them, I think, can put up about 500 yards rushing. So he's quarterback out of Texas A&M. Let him go to the Bears. I wanted him for the Steelers, but I don't think he's gonna be on the board at that point. 16 overall, we have the Jaguars again. You have to fix that offensive line. It's still struggling. I'm going to give him the guard out of Alabama, who I had as a first-round pick last year, Deontay Brown. A great run blocker. Georgia's offensive line, it was fantastic last year. They could definitely run the ball. I think they're going to continue to run the ball. So the Jaguars cannot go wrong with Deontay Brown. 17. These are where it gets interesting. This is the Browns. I'm going to give them Quincy Roche, defensive end, who is with Miami now. He was with Temple last year. I liked him with Temple last year. Thought he was fantastic. Now he's going to be at Miami, playing opposite the best defensive end in college, in Greg Rousseau. Not only that, there's that Jonathan Garvin is on that defensive line. And I think they're going to put together a season kind of like what Clemson had a couple years ago with their Power Rangers, with Clelin Ferrell and Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence, where they all were so good that they just made each other look good because you can't block all of them. You can't scheme for all of them. So I think Roche is going to really impress people. He's going to get sacks. He's going to get more opportunities that he had at Temple. And the Browns are going to need that. I think Olivier Vernon can't last forever. So I think that would be a very solid pick. Who are we? 18, Vikings. I love this pick. Kyle Pitts, tight end out of Florida, Gators. This guy, I think the Vikings are putting together a real high-powered offense. And Kyle Pitts is just a weapon. He's an amazing weapon at tight end, and they're struggling at tight end. Kyle Rudolph is not the answer. I thought he wanted out. I'm sure they were going to trade him last year because I don't think he wants to play there. And what was it, Irv Smith Jr.? They're really lacking that offensive threat at tight end. And this guy's going to be the next Noah Fant, Evan Engram, just a guy that's hard to cover. So now where are we? 19, Patriots. A lot of people are thinking the Patriots are going to try and tank for a quarterback. I don't think they're going to be able to tank that much. So I think they'll pick higher than 19. But let's say they're picking at 19. I have Trey Smith, left tackle / left guard out of Tennessee, is fantastic. Their offensive line, I think that was Brady's biggest. It's almost like the Eli Manning situation where you're at the end of the quarterback's career. And it's like, please, for the love of God, will you fix the offensive line? And they won't. I don't know what it is. They figure, well, the quarterback's, I don't know. Do they figure you're going to move on anyway, so you're going to rebuild and you just don't care about him? You have to protect the quarterback. I think every team starts with the offensive line. And Trey Smith is a great option, which gets graded. Geez, Tennessee is going to have a great offensive line. I think I have another one of their tackles in the first round. Let's just go to 20, Titans. Shaun Wade, cornerback, Ohio State. I'm not in love with a lot of corners so far. And I kind of flip-flopped with him and from Alabama, Patrick Surtain. Wade is more dynamic. I also like the cornerback from Stanford, Paulson Adebo. But Sean Wade, I think, is the cornerback that's going to do the cornerback blitzes. If you do a screen pass, he's going to stop you for a loss. He's, I think, the most dynamic cornerback in this draft. Granted, he played with Okuda and Arnett last year. But if anything, I think he's going to shine more because they're gone. 21 Colts. I want to give them a run stopper. I always want to give them a run stopper because they're not great against the run. And here's where I'm taking a chance. I think this is different. I don't know if anyone else has this guy in the first round. LeBrian Ray, defensive tackle, Alabama. Can't go wrong with Alabama. This guy missed quite a few games last year with a foot injury. I think he had minor surgery, and they kind of rotated him in and out. But this year, I think he's going to get more playing time, and he's going to stand out. LeBrian Ray, defensive tackle, Alabama. 22, Packers. I think now is the time where they're finally going to address wide receiver. And this is where you have Rondale Moore from Purdue. If anyone is going to challenge Jalen Waddle for fastest 40 time, it's Rondale Moore. He's an Antonio Brown type player. This is definitely what they need. They need this thread. Probably too late for Aaron Rodgers, but I think the Packers are thinking in the future. But Rondale Moore is a weapon. 23 Eagles. I think this is where they realize they need a running back. They need a franchise running back once again. It's been quite a while. Now we have Travis Etienne out of Clemson. Again, Clemson's probably going to win the championship, so Etienne is going to really be highlighted. And I couldn't name you, Miles Sanders is not the answer at running back, or they kind of have a committee. And I think they're going to see this year that it's not working. So Travis Etienne to the Eagles. 24 Seahawks. I thought their secondary really needed to be addressed in this past draft, and it really wasn't. So now let's give you Patrick Surtain from Alabama, cornerback. I originally had him as ranked first, but after watching the tape, he's not as dynamic as Sean Wade from Ohio. But he's very solid, and he's not going to get beat. He's not going to screw up his assignment because he's pretty much been started every game since freshman year. So I think that says something. I've never seen him get burned. I don't think he's a great play maker, but I just see him as extremely solid. And without some of the other guys that got drafted, so I mean he'll have his opportunity to show what he's made of this year. He's going to have to. He's got very good competition this year. So where are we? 25, the Bills. Here, I think that they still need to build their offensive core, their wide receiver core. Beasley is not going to be around forever. You have Diggs for a while. You'll still have John Brown. I still think you need to add to that wide receiver core. Here's where Devontae Smith comes in. He's friggin' amazing. Set records, broke records at Alabama. Granted, they had that ridiculous wide receiver core at Alabama this past year with 4 potential first-round picks. But I think this is where he goes. He's got the speed to catch up to Josh Allen's cannon arm. Steelers at 26. I wanted to give them Kellen Mond. I think I said that a minute ago. Because Ben is not going to be around forever. I don't know if he'll make it through this season, just because with injuries. But at this point, I don't think there's going to be a quarterback worth taking unless they're looking at Tanner Morgan from Minnesota, who I like a lot. Do I like him in the first round? I don't know. So I think that if they could they probably should address quarterback in free agency. They probably should have had Teddy Bridgewater as their backup this year, or Jameis Winston. They didn't. I don't think they have a legit backup, but I don't think at this position that their quarterback is here. They're probably better off taking the best offensive lineman available. Cade Mays, left tackle / left guard, Tennessee. Just like I mentioned earlier, Trey Smith, also a left tackle / left guard from Tennessee. I'm not sure where they're going to play as far as position. Cade Mays transferred from Georgia. That offensive line in Georgia was amazing last year. And Cade Mays probably would have taken over a left tackle for Andrew Thomas. I don't know why he transferred, but Tennessee is going to be intriguing to watch. Give them Cade Mays out of Tennessee. Either way, you're going to have to keep up with that offensive line. Steelers have always maintained a top offensive line. Speaking of which, now we have the freaking Cowboys at 27. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to give them the center out of Georgia, Trey Hill. Georgia, I think I mentioned earlier, their offensive line was amazing. They're great run blockers. That kind of starts at the center. That is Trey Hill, even though they drafted Tyler Biadasz. His health is questionable, and worst case scenario, you can kick Tyler Biadasz out to guard, and that would just be amazing. The Bucks picking at 28. I don't think they're going to do this good this year, people, but Vegas has them picking at 28. You still have Tom Brady next year, in theory. I don't think they would take a quarterback just because of Brady. Get his panties in a bunch. So at 28, the best player available for them, I think, will be Paulson Adebo, cornerback, Stanford. Had to watch a lot of tape on him. He's got first-round buzz. That's why I watched the tape. And he's legit. He's very tough, very aggressive, great coverage skills. And I don't think you can go wrong. Their defense, I wanted to give them a defensive lineman. Their defensive line is very good. Offensive line got better, especially with this past draft. They got Tristan Wirfs. Let's move on to 29, the Saints. Here's a fun one, because I also originally thought about giving them Kellen Mond, because they're going to have to address quarterback. Maybe they're hoping that Jameis Winston works out. Best case scenario for the Saints, they don't want Winston to have to play this year, obviously. They want Drew. But if they see enough of his work ethic and what he's capable of behind the scenes, they might say, yeah, let's sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal. This could be our stopgap for several years. So let's have a fun pick. Let's give the Saints Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, Alabama, who's probably going to be the fastest man alive at the Combine. He might be faster than Henry Ruggs. And even though they have Michael Thomas, even though they signed Emmanuel Sanders is kind of at the end of his career, you're still going to need that third option. And Waddle is scary because he's so fast. The Ravens picking at 30. Here, I want to give them Creed Humphrey, center, Oklahoma. It's a big SOB. It's a big corn-fed center. And they still need to replace Yanda, which I don't think they've done. And this is just perfect for a team that loves to run with a mobile quarterback who, if you give him time, that's just dangerous. So give them Creed Humphrey. 49ers picking 31. I'll just say it right now. I have the 49ers going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl because I don't think, what's his name, the freaking coach, I'm drinking too much beer, Shanahan, I don't think he's capable of going to the Super Bowl for a third time and not realizing you just have to run the ball in the fourth quarter. I don't think he's capable of making that mistake for a third time. Where was I? 49ers picking 31st overall. I was originally very proud of myself for coming because I wanted to put some players in the first round that maybe aren't on other people's radars for the first round. It turns out I saw a mock and someone had him actually going to the 49ers. Originally, I had this person going 32nd, but 31st overall, I'm going to give the 49ers Israel Mukwamu, cornerback, South Carolina. Big cock. 6'4", 205 pounds. He kind of made a name for himself in the Georgia game where they beat Georgia. Big upset. Yeah, I think he had 3 interceptions in that game. One of them was like a tip ball, or it was actually what it was Javon Kinlaw. It's kind of an old cliche where you the best way to to help your secondary is to have someone rush the damn quarterback. That was Javon Kinlaw. So Fromm was making mistakes and made a stupid pass. That was one interception. The other was a tip ball, which was great. It showed great that tip drill. It just for a guy who's 6'4", amazing hands, obviously great length. He's got the speed. The 49ers can really use a difference maker like this because Richard Sherman obviously is at the end of his career. I think Richard Sherman didn't hit peak and go down until the damn Super Bowl where he got beat a couple times by Sammy Watkins. So the 49ers are going to have to do something at cornerback. And this guy, for his size, I don't think there's anyone like him. That's why I put him in the first round. Originally, I had him, like I said, going to the Chiefs, kind of just because to have this kind of anomaly playing cornerback. And he's playing in the SEC. He's playing against great talent. Let's see what he does this year. But I really wanted him in the first round. And here he is. So now the Chiefs, actually the reason I originally had Israel going last in the first round is because I wanted to give the 49ers Cade Mays, but some other, that's the draft. Things get moved around, and I think Cade Mays is actually going to move up. Just keep an eye on him. But last, 32nd overall to the Chiefs, they have to address their offensive line. I think they're weaker at guard than tackle, but I have Walker Little, left tackle out of Stanford. It's probably going to be too good for them to pass up. It's probably the only position on the offensive line they don't need because their left tackle did okay, actually pretty damn good against Nick Bosa in the Super Bowl, which I was really shocked at. But you have Walker Little. This is a big, corn-fed motherfucker, left tackle, Stanford. I had him in the first round if he came out last year. First game of last year, he had a really bad foot injury. He was out for the rest of the year. But he's going to be huge this year. So there it is. That is my way too early mock. A lot of players to watch and get excited about. A lot more wide receivers, a lot more running backs. If you notice, I don't have any safeties because no safety stands out to me right now. Obviously, that's going to change, so let's keep an eye on the safeties, and I will see you next year.